What's going on, everyone? Welcome on into the Cleveland Browns Report. Coming up on today's show, I want to look at 5 players who may lose their roster spot or their role because of a rookie from this past draft in UDFA signing period. So I saw this tossed out on a Browns Wire article and thought, pretty good idea. How about I take a swing at it? So let's refresh everyone's memories on the picks made by the Browns in the 2024 NFL Draft. None of these picks jump out to me as obvious starters for 2024. Like Michael Hall and Zak Zinter were picks for 2025. And then Jamari Thrash through Juwan Briggs were just best player available. Let's go get the number one guy on our board. And if it happens to be at a position of need, awesome. If not, no problem. So let's start with one guy that could be on the hot seat, and that is last year's third-round pick from Baylor, Siaki Ika. And that's because the Browns' defensive line is just so crowded. It's like one of those videos you see of people getting on a train in India. There's just no way that anyone else is going to fit. Because when you look at the interior defensive line, you've got Dalvin Tomlinson, Shelby Harris, Quentin Jefferson, Maurice Hurst. I'll stop right there and say 4 players signed in the last 13 months of NFL free agency. And then you tack on recent draft picks of Mike Hall and Siaki Ika, and that alone is 6 players for usually just a 4-man rotation. So when I look at the Browns' defensive tackle room closer, Dalvin Tomlinson, Shelby Harris, Quentin Jefferson, just based on the contracts given to those 3 players, they are locks to make the roster in my eyes. And then Michael Hall, second-round pick this year, he's not making the roster, so he's a lock to make it, which means you've got 4 right there alone. So you could even say that Maurice Hurst and Siaki Ika are more than just bubble plus players. But if the Browns do want to take 5 defensive tackles, unless an injury pops up, which we all know how this works, anytime you get too in the weeds on who makes the roster, injuries occur, and then that shakes up your whole board. But unless an injury happens, it's going to come down to Maurice Hurst or Siaki Ika in my eyes. And I think it's a no-brainer who the better player is. Maurice Hurst. Yes, Siaki Ika is younger, and that has some lure to it because that means they could be on this team for a long time and have a longer career with the Browns than Maurice Hurst could. But Maurice Hurst last year was freaking awesome. 22 tackles, 1.5 sacks, 4 tackles for loss, 5 QB hits. And keep in mind, he wasn't even a starting defensive tackle. He was giving better production than the Browns' 2022 defensive tackles were. And those guys started. And he was just a backup last year. Now, I know what you're thinking. No way Andrew Berry moves on from a third-round pick last year already, right? And I'm inclined to agree with you. But I am honestly asking, are all 6 guys making the roster? I mean, sure, if an injury pops up, then this conversation is mute. But if all 6 players get through training camp, OTAs, minicamp, healthy, clean as a whistle, are the Browns going to have 6 defensive tackles? I mean, this is not a bad problem to have as a GM, too many good players at one position, especially a position that you haven't really been able to solve since you took over as the GM, Andrew. But I'm very curious, what does Barry do? Because look at his entire history of third-round draft picks. I mean, Cedric Tillman is making the roster. Martin Emerson, Alex Wright, David Bell. The only guy that did not make the roster and was cut before their 4-year contract expired was, of course, Anthony Schwartz last year. But he still made the Browns roster. His rookie year in 2021, his sophomore year in 2022, and even, no, that's where it ended, 2023. So Anthony Schwartz got at least 2 seasons, right? Are we going to see Siaki Ika get at least 2 seasons? I'm inclined to believe so, but I'm genuinely asking. Someone smarter, let me know. What's going to happen with the third-round pick last year, who last year didn't really show us a lot to believe he's going to be a key part of this defensive line rotation, right? Jim Schwartz said, "You've been a dump truck, and I want to turn you into a Ferrari." And I remember thinking to myself, I don't know. I think he's pretty good served as a dump truck. Like, he's 320-plus pounds. Let him be a nose tackle. Sure, you may not get pass rushing upside from him like you could from Michael Hall, but every team needs a run stopper in the goal line. Siaki Ika could be that guy for you. So give me your thoughts down below. Next player up is David Bell. Speaking of third-round picks, What's going to happen to the former Purdue Boilermaker? Is he going to make the roster? Last year, I thought he had a pretty strong end to the year. 2 touchdowns against the Bengals, but still underwhelming production for his second year. Just 14 grabs, 167 yards. And the wide receiver room has seen some additions made to it. Jerry Jeudy and Jamari Thrash come over in the offseason. So when David Bell last year wasn't, I would say, a fringe player to make the roster, didn't think Andrew Berry would move on from a third-round pick that quickly without a clear and obvious upgrade. Now we have a different conversation, right? Because Jamari Thrash has entered the mix, and I don't think the Browns are going to move on. Well, I don't think. I know the Browns aren't going to move on from a fifth-round pick just from a few months prior. So could Jamari Thrash push David Bell out of the Browns roster? First, some background on the former Louisville Cardinal. 5'11", 188 pounds, really good speed, 4.46, 40-yard dash. Now, I've seen I wouldn't say lazy, but maybe misinformed take tossed out there that, Jamari Thrash is the Browns' new slot wide receiver. Louisville did not use him as a slot wide receiver for what it's worth last year. He only lined up there about 10% of the time. Now, very often we see players have different roles when they get to the NFL, and colleges do what's best for their college. And at Louisville, Jamari Thrash may have been best served as an outside wide receiver, and that could change in the NFL. But I'm just going to caution you to just jump the gun to go like, this is your new backup wide receiver in the slot. May develop into that, but as things stand right now, he has some learning to do. That's not something he did a lot at Louisville. So that could be David Bell's ultimate saving grace, that the guy who may replace him on the roster doesn't have a ton of experience in the backup slot position, and that's where the Browns need a little bit of help from their wide receivers. But who knows? If Thrash has a really good OTA minicamp and training camp and picks things up quickly and dominates in the slot, that could be bad news for Mr. Bell. Now, before we get on to the rest of today's show, it is brought to you by our friends over at Mando. Warm weather is here, which means certain parts of you may begin to sweat and smell. But kick the bad odor with Mando Whole Body Deodorant. Put it on your pits, package, feet, and beyond for whole body freshness. For the makers of Lumi Deodorant, this game-changing formula is safe for your entire body. It knocks out odor like a champ. Plus, the Dog Pound can get $5 off a starter pack at shopmando.com with promo code CHAT. Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, plus free shipping. So get their starter pack today and get up to 40% off of it when you use promo code CHAT at shopmando.com. Now, I put all that information for you guys in the comments and description of today's video, but ditch the stink with our friends over at Mando and get $5 off that starter pack with promo code CHAT. Third player up is a newly signed, newly acquired player, linebacker Devin Bush. I feel like I've been trying to push Devin Bush out since he got here, but it's just because I'm not all that sold on him being a starting linebacker for fair reason. And as things stand right now, he is your Taki replacement. And I don't think he is an upgrade over Taki, which means you could see a player like, Nathaniel Watson come and take Devin Bush's spot. Now, Bush, the former top 10 pick out of Michigan by the Pittsburgh Steelers, was drafted because he was an impact player for the Wolverines. No impact the last 2 years. No sacks, no forced fumbles, no interceptions. Meanwhile, Nathaniel Watson last year at Mississippi State, not an apples-to-apples comparison, he made impact plays. And so did Devin Bush at Michigan. So it just goes to show that it doesn't always mean you're going to unilaterally bring all of your stats from college to the NFL over. But I'm a bookie believer. That is Nathaniel Watson's nickname. And I think that this linebacker competition will be real. That Devin Bush was not given a lot of guaranteed money for a reason. And that is, if the Browns want to move on from him, they are free to do so without any financial burden. So watch for the 5th-round pick out of Mississippi State, or 6th-round pick, whatever it was, Nathaniel Bookie Watson, to push for that starting starting outside linebacker role, when in all reality, the Browns are likely just going to run a lot of 2 linebacker sets anyway. Fourth player on the hot seat, if you will, is offensive guard Michael Dunn. Remember, he was like the first guy off the bench last year when Joel Bitonio or Wyatt Teller had an injury pop up, mostly Bitonio. And I think you could see third-round pick Zak Zinter push Dunn for that first guy off the bench for the interior offensive line. Whereas like James Hudson was that for the tackles, especially after DeJuan Jones took over from Jack Conklin. That could be Zinter for the guards and maybe even the centers, but probably just for the guards. Last year, Michael Dunn, he played a good amount of football, like 248 snaps. Not a ton, but you think about it, there's about 60-ish snaps in the game for the offense. So we're looking at a few games worth. He started, for example, against the 49ers for Joel Bitonio. But I think Zak Zinter, the third-round pick from Michigan, will have a real shot to try and steal that job from Dunn. And if that's the case, Michael Dunn may not have a spot on this roster. I'm a big fan of the Zinter selection. In 4 years as a starter for the Wolverines, he only gave up 3 total sacks and 8 penalties. 0, by the way, in his final year, which, of course, was ended prematurely due to a broken leg with now current teammate Mike Hall against Ohio State at the end of the year. But I think we'll look back at the draft in a few years, and I like to play this game. I look at the draft on Pro Football Reference's website, and anyone that's no longer in the league, their name is unbolded. And so you can kind of look back, and it's like a graveyard of like, even after 5-6 years, how many first and second round picks are out of the league. And I think Zak Zinter, in like 10 years, his name will be bolded in a sea of unbolded names, and people are going to wonder, how the heck did he fall to the third round? And I'm also going to ask, how the hell did Zak Zinter fall to the third round? Like, he was one of the best interior offensive linemen in football last year. He's not going to be asked to have a big role at all in his rookie year, so that gives him even more time to recover from that broken leg, which, by the way, he says he is ready to roll and he'll be good to go for training camp. So I think this is going to be a great steal for the Browns looking back at the draft. Hot take, I think Zak Zinter is going to be starting guard for this team in 2025. Don't want to say for who, because I don't think the Browns should be in a spot where they're already looking to move on from Joel Bitonio or Wyatt Teller, guys who are playing at a Pro Bowl, All-Pro level. But the reality is they are both highly paid, and teams often don't pay guards a lot of money. They very rarely pay 2 guards a lot of money. So there is a very good chance one of these 2 guards that is on the hook for a $20+ million cap hit in 2025 is just nothing more than a cap casualty. It has nothing to do with their play, but whoever is probably the worst guy of the 2, which is mean to say because they're both playing at a really high level, could be moved on from, and the Browns will save $20 million in the process and plug Zak Zinter in to start for him. Now, give me your hot take for 2024, whether it's the Cleveland Browns or just the NFL in general. Drop a hot take for me down below in the comment section. I've got one. If you think of one too, you can join Colin Brown. Just NFL related here. I've done this hot take for 2 straight years. I think this is the year where the Cowboys bullshit catches up to them. Okay. And Jerry says all in. And I think he's really bracing for one last year of Dak. And if it works out, awesome. But they're not going to overinvest in Dak and then regret that for the next 5 years. So I think we see the Cowboys miss the playoffs.
Okay. To back up your statement, by the way, the Cowboys, I'm sure you know this already being the encyclopedia that you are, first team in NFL history to win or have 3 straight regular seasons of 12+ wins, not to make the conference championship game.
Yeah, that's tough. That is very difficult to accomplish.
Yeah.
Hot take?
Hot take. I'm going to say the Houston Texans are not going to win their division.
Ooh, who does? Jags?
I'm going to go with the
Colts?
Indianapolis Colts.
All right. I mean, they were 1 catch away on 4th down from beating the Texans potentially. And then who knows what happens to Houston after that.
Yeah.
All right. 5th and final player in the hot seat. I just put Colin on the hot seat asking for a hot take. Giovanni Ricci. I'm reaching for this one. Like, Giovanni Ricci is kind of already a bubble player at best to make this roster. Now, the Browns not drafting a tight end surely helps him out a lot. But they did bring a UDFA tight end from Wyoming in, Trenton Welch. 6'3", 241 pounds. It's tough to evaluate tight ends in the college football level. Like, fun fact, back-to-back 300-plus yard seasons. Like, that doesn't sound very impressive, right? What was George Kittle's final receiving stat line at Iowa? Like 151 yards, Colin. Can you fact check it? I'm going to guess it's between 150 and 200 yards. Colleges just don't use tight ends the way the NFL does. So it's very difficult to look at a tight end and think, oh, that guy can't be a good NFL receiving tight end. He only had 100, 200 yards. How many did Kittle have?
What was the yards?
Yeah, yards his final year.
314.
314 yards. So, like, no one looks at 314 yards and think that guy's going to be an all-pro receiving tight end. But that's what happened with Kittle. So, I think Welch could come in here and push Giovanni Ricci for that third tight end spot because he's got good versatility to his game, solid blocker, and a solid receiver as well. All right, let's bring on Cullen Brown so we can pick a card to wrap up the show.
I was about to say, this might be the most I've been involved in this episode in a minute, so
this
I'm excited. What better way to hopefully get
Talking
a card
Browns with Brown.
I like it. That's
if you start
genius.
putting together some good takes, I'll be out of a job. That's going to market the shit out of itself. Which card do you want to go with, amigo?
I'm going to go with the 5 of clubs today.
5 of clubs? All right. I'm going to go with 5 of diamonds, like 5 guys in the hot seat. Diamonds, I think, could be hot. We ready?
I like it.
No, not even close. 2 of clubs. 2 of clubs. All right. I'll let you guys get back to the rest of your day. I'll see you all later. Go Brownies.